However, it was found that these devices heat and thus damage underwater life. And that's where laser came from. You say, oh, well, even though it's killing these animals, it can also kill some things in the body if we focus it directly to get to the things that we want to make sure that we destroy. Although this fact limited intensity of ultrasound appropriate for sonar, it led to the development of clinical ultrasound devices specifically intended for heating, so they had to change and work with some of the numbers, for biological tissue. Now, ultrasound is a deep heat through sound waves. That's really the best answer that you can give to your patient. Because they're probably going to say, what's that thing right there? It's a deep heat through sound waves. It goes much deeper than a hot pack. All right, hot pack goes 1 to 2 millimeters. All right, but so if I'm trying to get something in the sciatic region, a hot pack ain't going to reach it, but this could possibly reach it. All right, so we want to make sure that we know that ultrasound is a deep heat. It's not like a hot pack, because hot pack doesn't go to the level that we need it to go through. All right, let's see here. Yes?
Can it get to the bone of the heat?
Yes, and we're going to get to that at the end. And in lab on Thursday, Friday, we probably will find out that we got to the bone. Because when you hear, ah! Then you know somebody reached the bone. Hadn't failed. Every year it happens, but, you know, we'll talk about it. We're going to get there. All right, let's see. All right, let's go to the lecture, page 31. So when I get there, I'm going to call your name. You know what I'm talking about. All right, definition. High frequency sound waves greater than 20,000 hertz. All right? Too high to stimulate receptors of the human ear. So it's inaudible. Now, we look at, let's see, where's that? Try 73. What page you on?
31.
Oh, that's probably the wrong page. It might be the right page. I keep changing that around. Next page, 33. Yes?
Am I getting kind of confused with decibels and hertz? Maybe because I feel like higher, the more it is, the more it hurt your ears hearing it.
But it's not built that way. It's still sound, but it's sound that's going into the body. And this ultrasound, when it hits the air, it's going to bounce back and reflect to the machine.
So like, there's a difference between hertz
Big
and
difference.
decibels?
Big difference. Big difference. Okay, yeah. What did I say, 33? Yes. Good. All right, so longitudinal mechanical pressure wave with condensations and rarefractions. All right, so you're taking an ultrasound head and you're doing ultrasound on somebody's hand or ultrasound on somebody's back or whatever, and you're moving back and forth, and from the sound head is coming ultrasound. We'll talk about how that even happens in a second. All right, so it says longitudinal mechanical pressure wave with condensations and rarefractions. Now, you see where some of the dots are close, and then some of the dots are spread, and then they're close, and then they're spread, and then they're close. What happens when the ultrasound goes in the body, it goes in from the sound head like this. And then once it hits that bone or interface area, then it goes this way. Now, this movement back and forth is very important for the heat. We'll get to that in a second. But this is what's happening from the sound head. All right, so that's coming out of the sound head. Now, vibrational energy causes, here we go, tissues or tissue molecules to oscillate. Stop. What does oscillate mean? Move or move back and forth. Now, try this with me. Put your hands together like this here. And then just rub your hands together like this. Fast.
We're going to generate heat, right?
Oh, thank you. We're going to generate heat. So, when the sound comes in, it causes the tissue molecules to rub up against one another so fast that heat is produced. All right, so that's where the heat is coming from ultrasound at those high frequency sound waves. All right, now, 1 megahertz versus 3 megahertz. 1 megahertz is the same as 1 million cycles per second. 3 megahertz is the same as 3 million cycles per second. Now, let's go to a handout I gave you. Now I need to make some sense of some things. All right. It says, note, if the frequency, and I need to read it slow so it can absorb, if the frequency of ultrasound is increased, stop. We have 1 megahertz and 3 megahertz. All right. Which one is more? 3. All right, so hold on to that. There will be more tissue absorption. If we have a higher frequency, there will be more tissue absorption. Okay? We'll keep reading. If there is more tissue absorption, there will be greater attenuation. Well, what in the world does attenuation mean? All right? A gradual diminishing of strength. All right, so let's say I have ultrasound. All right? If, and we're going to say on either side of me, on either side are our tissues. And we're going to say that that machine right there, the overhead projector, is where the ultrasound is trying to reach. All right? We're going to say this is 1 megahertz. All right. This is the ultrasound that made it to the area at 1 megahertz. The rest got what? Absorbed in the tissue. Now let's read it again. All right. It said, if the frequency of ultrasound is increased, there will be more tissue absorption. So, that was not increased, that was low. So suppose I turned it up to 3 megahertz. How much made it to the area? Not that much, because the vibration was so much that only just a little bit made it to that area. What am I saying? If we want to treat a deep area, we need 1 megahertz. Because 1 megahertz is not that much shaking or not that much vibrational energy, and more heat can make it to that area. If I turn it to 3 megahertz or turn it up high, there's a lot of tissue absorption, so not that much makes it deep, so then I can treat superficial areas. Okay? So if I want to treat an ulnar styloid, a patella, the head of the distal phalanx of the index finger, if I want to treat something thin, I need 3. If I want to treat something deep, I want 1. Okay? All right.
Area, we need 1.
1 megahertz. Now, you want a 1 megahertz machine or a machine in which you can set 1 megahertz on. All right, now we'll tell you this. If you see a machine where you can't find a megahertz, safe to assume it's a 1 megahertz machine. Like these machines, ain't no way in the world we can set no megahertz on these machines. They just come out as 1. All right, so, and we'll talk about the purchasing of a machine. So if you ever decide to open up your own practice, you want to buy the correct machine, because if you don't, that could be another reason why your patients aren't getting better, because you bought the wrong stuff. All right, I'm going to keep going.
So for the 3 megahertz, is that where we treat the patella?
Yes, so the higher the megahertz, the more tissue absorption, or the more, as it says, diminishing of strength. So the strength got left over in the tissues off to the side. It didn't make it to the area. Yeah, all right. So hopefully you got that. So just remember the cup story, and that will help. All right. Woo. All right. Okay, now let's keep reading. I'm going on the page that I gave you. So, gradual diminishing of strength is what I said. The measurement of decrease in ultrasound intensity when the tissue absorbs the heat from the ultrasound beam. All right, all the cups over the floor. A reduction in the power and intensity of ultrasound waves traveling through a medium. So as the the waves are traveling through the medium, high frequency cups all over the floor. All right. A decrease of ultrasound is based upon tissue absorption. So all of that is basically talking about the high frequency. If we want a lower frequency or 1 megahertz, we'll get to those deeper tissues. Good. All right. Now let's go back to the page 31, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Now. So, remember number 2, production of ultrasound waves, very focused, secondary to high frequency. So, you might have this picture in there too. And you can see the difference in the ultrasound waves. The 1 megahertz goes a little further. The 3 megahertz does not go that far. Okay. Letter A, B, let's see, 2A. Sound head, transducer, or applicator. Sound head, transducer, or applicator. Mr. James, Mr. Dye, Dr. Dye, same person. Sound head, applicator, transducer, same. Okay? That's what we're looking at. Encases the crystal. The crystal is probably the most expensive thing in this machine. We'll talk about that later. All right. Converts electrical energy into ultrasound energy. The piezoelectric crystal is mounted within the transducer. Stop. Inside this sound head is a crystal. All right. You should have that in there somewhere too. All right. It is about 2 to 3 millimeters in width, in height rather. All right. And it's inside of here. Okay. Piezoelectric crystal is mounted within or inside the transducer. Natural quartz, synthetic barium titanate, or plumbium zirconium titanate. Voltage or electrical charge is applied across the crystal, which will cause expansion and contraction of crystal face, causing it to deform and oscillate at very specific frequency, producing ultrasound waves. Stop. Go back to the page that I gave you, so we can make some sense out of it. All right. So, what is the standard piezoelectric effect that happens with cigarette lighter? It happens with a grill. It happens with things like that. The ability to generate an electrical current in response to a mechanical force. When the crystal is pressed or stressed, it produces electricity. So, normally, when a piezoelectric crystal is placed inside of a device, it's being hit somehow or being stressed somehow. And when it's being hit from some sort of force, electricity comes off. All right. Now, the reverse effect is what happens in ultrasound. Let's read that. Reverse piezoelectric effect. When electricity is applied to the crystal inside of here, you get high frequency sound. All right. So, let's explain. I take this unit and I plug it up to the wall. Electricity comes through. Electricity. Woo, there's crystals. Electricity. Boom! It hits the piezoelectric crystal. Electricity hits it, and ultrasound comes out. If a force hit this crystal, as opposed to electricity hitting this crystal, electricity will come out. But since electricity is hitting this crystal, ultrasound is coming out. So that's what the reverse effect is that happens with this. This is so expensive. Please, whatever you do, when you get finished using it, don't place it on the table, don't place it on the chair, don't put it on the floor for a minute. I don't care, for whatever reason you got to. Please, 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 put it back in the holder. This one here. Put it back in the holder and look for it to stop and click and make sure it's in there. This is so so expensive. When the guy came to check the machine, because we have to, question 25, I think it is on your home assignment, it's probably not in your book. How often are ultrasound machines calibrated? Once a year. So that's the answer
Oh,
for
thank you.
number 25. So you probably won't find that. So is that what it say? What is it?
Yeah, how often should US unit be calibrated?
Yeah, so machines once a year.
Once a year.
Once a year. All right. So this was calibrated on May the 18th. I'm sorry, May the 18th, 2012. It's up for recalibration again on May the 18th, 2013. All right, so that's when it will be calibrated. But when he took the device and he stuck it in the machine to check it, it didn't work. So we had to get a new sound head. Not this one, another machine upstairs. It cost me $250 for one. What? Are you crazy? So please put this thing back in the sound head. All right. Now, if nobody was teaching you, as she taught me, if this sound head went any place else other than this holder, put that back in there. so if she come walking in and it's on the table, you expect to slap on your hand because that's what's going to happen. Okay, all right, let's go back to the lecture page. Oh, this is not good in time. Maybe it might work. Okay, let's see. All right, so letter C. Coaxial cable can handle high frequency waves with minimal distortion, decreases interference of ultrasound to go into the environment, and then also from the environment to interfere with the ultrasound. Now, ultrasound beam is non-uniformed. All right, so let's look at the ultrasound beam. What is that page right there? $37. All right. So when the ultrasound beam comes out, it comes out in a non-uniform way. So if this is the sound head, it comes out in a non-uniform way. It does not really come out like that. All right, it doesn't come out straight. That's extremely important to know. All right. Now, non-uniform, so the average intensity is read on the unit. So, of course, this might be one level of ultrasound. This could be another level. This could be something else, something else, something else, something else. So the machine took the average and gave you that number on the machine. So that's what you're seeing. But this is what's truly happening coming out of the machine. All right. Now, has various intensities with many peaks. Okay, many different peaks coming out of that sound head. Beam of non-uniformity ratio. This is definitely board exam stuff right here. I'm telling you right now, baby. All right, BNR. So you'll hear about the BNR, the ratio of peak intensity to average intensity. 1-to-1 is ideal. I'll explain some of this in a second. 1-to-1 is ideal and does not exist. Peaks exist normally and may cause hot spots. 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 BNR is very good, relatively even energy distribution. And then it says 7:1 means that at 1 watt per centimeter square, intensity in some areas will be 7 watts per centimeter square, and at 2 watts per centimeter square will be 14 watts per centimeter square. Stop. So if you purchased a machine and you looked in the informational guide, the purchase guide, and it said 3:1, this is set by the manufacturer. This is set by you. So what does that mean? The manufacturer is saying, if you set the machine, if you set the machine on 1 watt per centimeter square, there's going to be, the highest peak that might occur could be 3. So remember I told you that these are not even. So let's say that even though the machine shows 1.0 watts per centimeter square, this one right here might be 3.0 watts per centimeter square. All right? That's one reason why we want to keep the sound head moving, because we really only want to give this person, for example, 1.0 watts per centimeter square. But if we're not keeping it moving, at some times they might get 3.0 watts per centimeter square. That's high. All right. Now, let's say I change this and I say, I'm trying to treat the buttocks. I think I might need 1.5 watts per centimeter square. 1.5 times 3 is what? 4.5. So the maximum hot spot could be as much as 4.5 watts per centimeter square. Now, this example here, that was 3.1. Let's go to 4.1. So if it's 4.1, manufacturer set this, you set this. Let's say you set the machine at 2.0 watts per centimeter square. The maximum hot spot could be as much as 8. Remember, it's just multiplication right here. It's just multiplication. Multiplication. All right? So let's look at the example that's written here. 7:1 means that at 1 watt per centimeter square, intensity in some areas will be, because 1 times 7, all right, is 7 watts per centimeter square. But if we change that 7, or we'll change that 1 to 2, 2 times 7 is 14. The highest hot spot could be as much as 14 watts per centimeter square. Woo! Hot. Okay, a lot, a lot, a lot. All right, now, we might want to read that maybe a little bit more, because that is probably need to stick a little bit longer. So let's go to page 46. Something else you can read on your own, so it can help to stick a little bit harder, just in case you didn't get it. All right? So page 46 at the top, it says, what is BNR? All right? What is BNR is what it says at the top. Nobody would buy a stereo without first listening to it. And yet most people buy therapeutic ultrasound units without knowing the quality of the sound. Since humans cannot hear ultrasound, we assume that all devices on the market are the same. They are not. Okay? The Food and Drug Administration has issued performance guidelines that regulate therapeutic ultrasounds. So keep in mind that the Food and Drug Administration is regulating this machine. Okay? All right, keep that in mind. All right, now, along with these regulations, there exist two figures, the merit that enable one to understand the quality of ultrasound beams, beam of non-uniformity ratio, and the effective radiating area. We'll hit the ERA a lot more on Monday, not today, because that's a little bit more challenging. The beam of non-uniformity ratio, BNR, allows one to immediately know the quality of the output beam of the ultrasound. The lower, underline, the lower the BNR, the better the quality of the ultrasound output. The lower the BNR, the better quality the ultrasound output. So a 3.1 is so much better than the 4.2. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can diagnose the intensity of the maximum point in the beam by knowing the BNR. If the treatment being delivered at a set dosage, watts per centimeter square, you can multiply the BNR by the intensity to find the maximum hot spot. We can multiply this first number by the intensity that I put in the second number. This times that equals the maximum hot spot that can be coming out at that watt per centimeter square. All right. Next section down and we'll be done here. An example follows. If a treatment is being delivered at 2 watts per centimeter square and the BNR of the ultrasound is stated at a maximum of 7.5:1, then what is 7.5 times 1? All right. That would be 15 watts per centimeter square. Okay. If the ultrasound unit's BNR was 5:1 and the maximum point would say that the maximum point would only be 10 watts per centimeter square. So hopefully that helps you to understand, if I'm looking at a BNR, the first number is set by the manufacturer. If I set that number, let's change this. Let's say I'm treating a ulnar styloid and I want it at 0.5 watts per centimeter squared. What is the maximum hot spot? 1.5. Good. All right, so that's the maximum hot spot from this peak and valley. Even though I set it at 1.5, I'm set it at 1.5 watts per centimeter squared, the maximum that's coming out at one point could be as much as. Yes, ma'am.
If the maximum hot spot is 1.5, I don't get why when it's 10 and 15. Because if we have to multiply 7 times 5 times 1, but it's just 7.5.
Where are you? 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you have to go back, because it said 2 watts per centimeter squared.
So I mean, it means I have to multiply the 2 times
Two-
7.12?
Yeah, 2.2 times 7.5. And that's how you
Because
get
the
15.
maximum point is 2.5.
That's the maximum hot spot. So if you had the machine, if you got a machine that was 7.5:1, and you set the machine at 2 times, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. All right, let's go. Let's go back to whatever page this is. 31? Yeah. Okay. Now, the next one. Jesus. Effective radiating area, ERA, the area of ultrasound radiation on transducer face. Always smaller than the transducer face, corresponds closer to the crystal size. 1/4 area spacing around the rim is empty, so you need to overlap the strokes. What does that mean? So the ultrasound is coming out of this head. Yeah. There's a crystal inside, so the actual sound that's coming out of here only corresponds to whatever the crystal size inside of here is. Usually, a real good ERA is close to the size of the crystal. A good ERA is close to the size of the crystal. Good. Now, here is a sound head that has a rim around it. So this rim, you're not getting ultrasound from this rim piece here. You're just getting from whatever piece of the crystal on the inside of here is actually there. So wherever the crystal is, that's where the ultrasound is coming out of. Now let's see if I can give a good example here. All right, so let's say if I have a good ERA, a good size of the crystal, and this is my sound head, then when I'm touching pretty much everything. Why did that thing not work? I don't know. However, if I don't have a good ERA or the crystal is not really close to the size of the sound head, when I do this, I'm missing areas. I missed all of this on the inside. So the bigger the crystal, the better coverage you're going to get from the ultrasound. The bigger the crystal, the better coverage you will get. Okay, and we'll talk more about ERA on Monday. Transmission of ultrasound waves. Now, it says, do not pass well through gases. What doesn't? Ultrasound. So ultrasound waves do not transmit well through gases. What's the biggest gas that we have? Air. All right, so ultrasound is not going to pass well through air. All right, so we need a coupling agent. Coupling agent. 3 we're going to work with. Gel, lotion, ultrasound lotion, and water. Coupling agents. All right, gel, lotion, water. Okay. Now, coupling agent needed to transmit ultrasound. Otherwise, meaning if you don't have it, then you're going to get a reflection of the ultrasound at skin and transducer interface and will prevent the transmission into the body tissues. So basically, the gel is a conduit that helps the ultrasound go through to the body. If you don't have the ultrasound on, it's just going to bounce back and in many cases crack the crystal, and then there's another $250 again. All right. So make sure that you, number one, don't drop the sound head because that destroys the crystal. And number two, make sure that you keep good coverage of gel on the area so that the ultrasound won't destroy itself and destroy the crystal.
Okay. So that means
That's amazing. That sounds like a good question. What were 2 ways to destroy a crystal? 1, drop it. 2, but it's like, come on, y'all gotta write stuff down. I heard that question right there. I ain't never had that question before. It sounds like a wonderful question I would
You
use.
said drop it in.
Or then you want to write it down. Don't drop it, because that can destroy the crystal. And don't not have it in the air with it on, or not have enough gel on it, because the ultrasound is going to come back, and it's going to bounce back and hit the sound head.
You mean just don't have it like on?
Or I can have it like this. See how I'm not, because think of ultrasound almost like massage. I want to contour the area. So if I'm going like this here, then the ultrasound is hitting the air if there's not enough gel on this area here, and it could bounce back and crack the crystal.
But then you can't like just lift it up.
No, you can't do that either. So, you know, and it might happen if the person say, ah! And you do like this. And then it's up in the air, and we don't cut it down real fast. It cracks the crystal.
If water is coupling agent, does it mean that you can apply it while somebody's leg is in water?
Yes, so we're going to work on that too. So we're going to be in the water, and then we're going to go like this here, a little bit of ways from, so the water will be in between the sound head and the body part, and we'll go just like this here.
So can it break it that quickly if somebody's in pain and you, of course, move it away right away?
It depends on how much gel was on there and how high of ultrasound beams you had coming out. Now, usually people who use a lot of gel, maybe not, but the mindset is if you haven't thought to turn down the intensity very quickly, it's possible to happen. Usually if that happens, in lab, we run right away and try to check it. And the best way to check it is just take the sound head, stick it underwater, turn it up to the highest intensity possible, and you'll see ripples go in the water. If you don't see the ripples, all right, so, let's see. Number 1. So why do we want this coupling aid? So when you hear me say, I'm trying to help y'all. I'm really trying to help y'all. When you hear me say, number 1, this, and number 2, it's like, come on, y'all, that's the quiz question. Come on. So write stuff down, but here it's written down. But however, make sure when you hear me say it, it ain't written down, number 1, number 2. Come on, write it down. All right. Number 1, minimizes the trapping of air in skin pores. So why are we using this gel? We're using the gel to minimize any air that can get in underneath and get to this sound head. So that's one reason why we want to use a coupling agent. All right. Number 2, decreases friction between the moving sound head and the skin, just like massage. If I don't have enough gel on the area, it's going to, be a lot of friction. So I want to make sure it's smooth, and I want to make sure that air cannot get in. All right, make sure the air cannot get in. Letter B, transmit well through homogeneous tissues. Homogeneous tissues are tissues that are of the same type. Tissues of the same type or same kind in nature. Transmit well through homogeneous tissues that have poor acoustic absorption. What does acoustic mean? Sound. All right, so poor ultrasound absorption. All right, so tissues that have poor ultrasound absorption, ultrasound will go well through. All right. Now, what are those tissues? Fat, water, skin, metal, blood, coupling agents. So, ultrasound will travel smoothly through those areas. All right. Good transmission will happen. Poor absorption, meaning a lot of the cups won't get caught in those areas, if you understand what I mean there. Little increase in temperature. So if there's not a lot of absorption in the tissues on the side, then you won't feel that heat in that area. So waves pass through that. They pass through. All right, so letter C, increase absorption in denser tissues. So the heat will get caught in the denser tissues, it will pass through the tissues that have poor acoustic absorption. All right, so increased absorption in denser tissues with high protein collagen content. Each tissue layer transmits and absorbs ultrasound according to its acoustic properties. So depending on what the tissue is, it will be able to absorb or not absorb ultrasound that well, all right? Most dense. So one of the most dense things are bone. So bone is going to hold the heat, all right? Denser, let's see, cartilage, tendon, ligament, joint capsule, scar tissue, absorb ultrasound well, heat up. Bone heats up 10 times greater than soft tissue. So if a person gets hot from ultrasound, it's probably down in the bone somewhere, because the bone is going to hold on to it. The muscle and the fat, or the fat and the water, is not going to really hold on to it. All right. All right. Let's see. Muscle absorbs and heats up 2 times as much as fat, which mostly transmit and does not heat up, because fat does not heat up that greatly. So what happens is you have some reflection and refraction that occurs at tissue interfaces. May cause additional heating at tissue interfaces. Now, so, picture at the bottom, the page I gave you. That's great. All right, let's see. All right, so you have tissue interfaces. All right, so let's look at the skin, fat, muscle, tendon, bone. All right, skin, fat, muscle, tendon, bone. Ultrasound comes into the body, and it does that, and it does that. Okay. It's down and goes down into the tissues, or it comes down and goes back up into the tissue. That's what we just read. Reflection and refraction occurs at tissue interfaces. What is an interface? An interface is a boundary between 2 things. All right? So, if Marco is a tissue and I am a tissue, where is the tissue interface? Right here. In between our 2 tissues is an interface, and this is where the buildup of heat can occur. All right. Now, when ultrasound hits an interface, it hits and either reflects into the tissue above, or it refracts into the tissue below. Some makes it through to another set of tissues, and it reflects and refracts, reflects and refracts, and it does that all the way down. Okay.
So between the 2 tissues, that's where the heat occurs?
Yeah, so the heat occurs here at the interface, or the absorption can occur right there at the connection of the 2 tissues. Okay, now, apply ultrasound in a perpendicular path to prevent transmission and absorption along interfaces. So let's say if I'm treating the ulnar styloid, it might be best for me to treat the ulnar styloid on the top, because my tissues go like this here. If I have the person flex and treat this way, I'm running that sound head along the tissue interfaces. And I can send a lot of heat into the tissue interfaces that way. So I want to go perpendicular to the treatment area, not along the treatment area. Okay. Okay. Characteristics of ultrasound frequency. Determines the depth of penetration of the ultrasound wave. So again, the frequency of the machine tells you how deep the ultrasound will be. For example, if I put 0.5 watts per centimeter square in here, okay, and I have a 1 megahertz machine, this is how much heat the sciatic nerve got. If I put 2.0 watts per centimeter square of heat in this cup, this is how much it got based upon the megahertz, which is 1. If I had a 3 megahertz machine and I put 0.5 watts per centimeter square of heat in this cup and went this far and dumped it, not a big deal, but this is how much heat it got. If I put 2.0 watts per centimeter square in this and the heat is only going to go not that far, try putting a lot of heat on the styloid. Just think about it that way. So heat, the heat that you put or that you set on the machine does not determine how deep it will go. The frequency determines how much it will go, and then what you set on the machine is going to actually get dumped in that area. All right, so heat does not determine distance. Frequency does. That heat is going to be in that area regardless. But if you put too much heat in a superficial area, you're really going to get a burn. All right. Okay. All right, frequency of 1 megahertz. Focus. Frequency of 1 megahertz. Focus beam diverges slightly. Depth of penetration, 5 centimeters or 2 inches. Let's rephrase it. How deep will a 1 megahertz ultrasound machine send heat? It will send heat up to 5 centimeters. Up to 5 centimeters. It'll go up to about 5 centimeters. A 1 megahertz machine will send some heat up to about 5 centimeters or 2 inches for 50% of the sound wave applied. All right. Most of the energy is absorbed in the deeper tissues and less in the superficial layers or superficial tissues. All right, let's make this real simple. All right, so if from here to there is 5 centimeters, all right, %, made it and to that area, and 25% went further. Y'all with me? The first 50% got lost in the tissues. 5% went here, or 50% went here, and the other 20 or 25% of that went a little bit deeper. But for the most part, it goes about 50%, 5 centimeters, 2 inches. Now, most of the energy is absorbed in the tissue or deeper tissues or less superficial. Half-value layer concept. What does that mean? What is the half-value layer concept? Half of the depth. Only half of the sound wave makes it to 5 centimeter depth due to attenuation, due to the loss of energy. So, when you have a 1 megahertz machine, the half-value layer concept says that only 50% will make it to about 5 centimeters. That's the half-value layer concept. I want to get that down. Okay, only 1/4 makes it deeper. Good for heating deeper tissues. Less absorption of ultrasound per unit area. So intensities can be higher. Frequency of 3 megahertz. By the way, that F there stands for frequency. Frequency of 3 megahertz. Superficial absorption. Very focused beam profile is parallel. Profile is parallel. Depth of penetration is 2 centimeters or a little bit less than 1 inch for 50% of the sound wave applied. So, what's the half-value layer concept for a 3 megahertz machine? It says that only 50% will make it to almost about 1 inch. Okay? Alright, most of the energy is absorbed superficially. Only half of the sound waves make it to 2 centimeters. Good for superficial tissues. Greater absorption, so intensities must be low. So, if you put 1.5 watts per centimeter square or 2.0 watts per centimeter square and you send it to the styloid, they are going to scream because you put too much heat and it can only go that far. It can't go any further because it's a 3 megahertz machine, not a 1 megahertz machine. So that heat is going to get locked in that little superficial area. All right, so don't do that. All right, let's see. Best used for wound healing. Your home assignment will address the wound healing. How do we do ultrasound with wounds? You'll get the answer to that in your home assignment. And tissue repair. Pulse mode for increased angiogenesis. Okay, PTT 112. Angio. Vessel. Genesis. Formation. Production. Good. All right, so that's what we have there. Fibroblast protein synthesis, etc. Acute edema reduction, increase in cell permeability to decrease edema. Trigger point, acupressure, superficial nerve stimulation because of location. A trigger point, if someone says they have a trigger point, that's a tiny contracted knot that has developed because an area is injured or overworked. A tiny contracted knot that developed when a muscle is injured or overworked. Okay? Now, Josephine, I'm about to talk to you. Okay, so adverse effects that could happen on Thursday and Friday of this week that I pray that it won't. Periosteal pain. Stop. Where is the periosteum?
Around
The smooth, that little, yeah, right there on top of the bone. Buildup of ultrasound at bone interface. Okay. Interface between what? Tendon and bone. Remember, the interface is the boundaries in between. All right, so this interface right here got a buildup of tissue. Buildup of heat. Now, interfaces causes pain in lab and hot spots due to overheating, too much, high absorption of ultrasound. So what happened? You put gel on, you start moving around, somebody call your name, you decide to talk, whatever it is. Or it's just too much, and and the person goes up with the sound head like that because so much heat. Because you didn't keep moving. Did you wake up over there? Because you didn't keep moving. Whatever this highest peak hot spot was, most likely met your bone. And it was so hot. Because bone does what? Absorb. It doesn't have poor acoustic absorption. It has good acoustic absorption. It gets its feelings hurt real bad. And it just holds on to it. And it's just emotional for a long period of time. All right? So bone holds on to the heat for a long time. It just can't get over it. All right? So that's what happens. And then in lab, we hear it. And then everybody busts out laughing because we know exactly what it was. All right, so that's what happened during treatment. However, usually in superficial bony areas. Pain and hot. And then honestly, usually the person don't want to work with you no more. That's usually what happens. And for some reason, on the practical, somehow your name, gets connected to their name, and then they walk in the room and it's like, Mr. James, can you tell them turn their intensity? Because they still don't trust you. They still don't trust you. So if your classmate who's known you since September don't trust you, you think a patient gonna trust you? So keep that in mind. That's why we want to keep the sound head moving. We don't want to stop. All right. Okay. So number 2, what do you need to do? There's 3 things you need to do. 3. Number 1, you need to move quickly away from the area. So they say, ah! Then you move quickly from the area. That's number 1. It's right there. Number 2, you want to increase the speed of the strokes. So make the strokes a little faster. It's right there. Just put number 1, number 2, number 3. Increase the speed of the strokes as you have moved away from the area. Okay. And then number 3, lower the intensity. Sometimes you don't have to do all 3, but you might want to turn the intensity down just a little bit. All right. So move away, speed up, turn the intensity down. All right. That's what you want to do. Now, so that's one way it can happen. All right. An adverse effect. The second adverse effect is rebound pain. Now, you treated them, or somebody treated you or worked with you on Thursday in lab. Then Monday morning, after Ms. Nard's class, somebody catches me in the hall. Mr. J, I got home on Thursday at about 6 o'clock. It's like, My arm was just aching right here. All right, that's this here. All right, read. Occurs several hours after ultrasound application. So you have increased pain and aching. In many cases, you probably gave too much ultrasound to an area. All right, too much. So you need to lower the intensity the next time. If it's still a problem, then DC. People don't usually think that it's rebound pain sometimes. So they might tend to trust you a little bit better with the rebound pain issue. It's just that periosteal pain that they don't seem to trust you that greatly. All right, so be mindful of that. All right, good. One last thing I need you to see. We'll look at it on Monday, but I need you to see it because we're doing ultrasound tomorrow. Should be page 47, I think. Yeah, turn to page 47, and then we out. If you have, make sure you read through, if you have a contraindication to ultrasound that's listed here, please tell me. All right, so catch me later and let me know if you have one of these issues, because we always want to make sure that someone does not have a contraindication to ultrasound, especially someone who's pregnant or someone who may have a pacemaker, because that can change the electrical currents within the pacemaker on the inside. So these are the things you want to know from patients, especially if you're doing a lot of outpatient physical therapies, as we call the shake and bake spots. You know, the places where you know, people ain't really hurt, but they just went to the lawyer because they trying to get money. I know, because I used to work at them. You know, when I was young and not that smart, I used to work at them, and I seen them coming there with a neck brace. You know, hey, how you doing? Hey, and then you know you get your ultrasound, and then you walk outside. You see them get in the car, pop that thing in the trunk. You know, ain't nothing wrong with you. But a lot of times when people are coming in and out, in and out, in and out, if the PT didn't ask the question, make sure you ask the question: is there any possibility that you might be pregnant? Because the ultrasound can destroy the fetus if there's too much that's there. So we want to be mindful, more so over the low back, not necessarily if you're doing an ankle or something like that, but we want to be mindful of a person having a contra. All right. See you in lab.
Oh,
Sure.
one more question.
Yeah.
Somebody's wearing, okay,
What's that?
like a metal something.
Yeah, metal is not a contra, it's more so of a caution.
Okay,
So we'll kind of lower the intensities because of